Good evening from beautiful Abruzzo in Italy, and welcome once again to another live streaming session with me, David Benton, from our home in Italy. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well in internet land. It would be great if we're all here together, wouldn't it? All bunched together, but unfortunately we can't. Apologies for last week. I had to put off last week. Have you missed me, first of all? That's the most important thing. Have you missed us? Have you missed me? Have you missed us? Apologies for last week. I did have a last minute things to do in Milan, which wasn't too bad to do. We didn't get back in time because the signing was put off for one day, so I had to cancel the live stream. But there you go. We're back. We're back as usual. I'm back to Tuesdays, so hopefully everybody can join us. Join us on a Tuesday, every single Tuesday from now onwards. So there you go. Remember, Tuesdays. This evening, what are we talking about? This evening is our regular, Doreen saying, missed you much. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Is our regular slot, the big, massive Q&A. Now, these Q&A sessions for me are really, really important. As I've mentioned before, I do want to do these as a regular thing, at least once every 5 weeks. 6 weeks. We need to have these Q&A sessions because this is the part where people often want to speak to me on personally on either on WhatsApp or some sort of chat or something like that. And unfortunately, I just haven't got the time to what can I say? It sounds awful to say, but I just haven't got the time to have all these online chats and things like that every day because we're out filming a lot. We've got some unbelievable properties for you to come in soon. We're out filming a lot, and there's lots of changes that's going off within our business. So it's sort of, this is what these evenings are for. If you've got something on your mind, if there's something that you want answering, by all means, drop me an email because some people have dropped me an email. I've got a few of these to read off today. And I will answer your questions as much as I can. And then come on here and let me know. Let me know what you're thinking. And we can talk and share with others as well, because it is so difficult for me to have slots during the day where I can spend half an hour to an hour with certain people. And as much as I would love to do that, it's just simply not possible. So these Q&A sessions are really important, so make sure you join them every time they're on. So while we're talking about the webinars that's coming up, let me just show you the next ones. Once Tony takes Buonasera from Ireland, was that perfect? Oh, Tony, yeah, I'm sorry. Tony, the producer, I'm talking to now. Just to let you know, Tony, I did get an email from Claire who said, can you ask Tony not to put the when people are saying hello and things like that, not to put them up and then take them down too fast because she can't read them. So there you go. You've been told now. I'm not, I can see him on a little screen at the bottom. I'm not going to tell you the response that he's just given to me. It wasn't to you, Alison. It was to me personally. Because I did say that I would have a moan at him tonight. Anyway, what was I going to do? Oh, yeah, next webinars. Let me just show you this. Next webinar. So next Tuesday. What have you written here? Tuesday, 20th of Feb. Oh, yeah. We could have put some commas in place. Home in Italy updates. This is a fair. I've already had Tony laughing at me earlier because we all know that I have different ideas and say things, then it doesn't happen, then some happen and some don't. The thing is, I've been doing this work now for nearly 18 years, and Home in Italy started during COVID time. So it is fairly new, the Home in Italy bit. And I've gone through so many different things of, will this work? Will that work? Will the other work? And now we've really have got to our core business. And it's going to slightly change. Nothing's going to change on these. These are always going to be here. And I've really pinned it down with the help, and I have to give hats off to Patrick if he's watching. I'm going to say thank you very much to him, who spent quite a lot of time talking to me and helped me out big style to try and really understand where we're going. I've made some tweaks, some changes. There's going to be some brilliant stuff coming up. And especially video properties and things like that. And we've finally found our way of doing things. So I'm going to tell you all about that next week. So please don't miss that one. That's next Tuesday. And another good reason not to miss this one is also because I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. We're going to actually start Domenico and Tony's. I have to read this because I can't get it in my head. Domenico and Tony's tongue twisting trials. Now, this is just going to be a little bit of a laugh because we like to have a laugh every now and then. For every webinar, at the beginning and at the end, there's going to be a little competition for everybody, and it's going to be a little bit of a laugh. We're going to learn Italian together. So it's just going to be a few cameo moments for Tony and Domenico, where basically they have to read out a phrase in not their languages but the opposite, because Domenico wants to learn English, so he's going to be thrown in the deep end every week, and Tony, who's been here for 90 years and knows 4 words, is still trying to learn Italian. So we're going to have a little bit of a laugh on this. So this is something to watch for at the beginning and at the end of each webinar, starting next Tuesday. It's going to be a bit of fun just for a couple of minutes. So that's another reason to join next Tuesday. Then Tuesday, the 27th of February, My Abruzzo special edition. Reason why it's a special edition, hopefully I am going to be getting some people from the last tour. I haven't told them yet. The last tour that we did in February, getting a few people on from that tour so they can give you their experiences of Abruzzo and find out if any of them actually found any properties while they're on the tour, and whether any of them are actually going ahead and buying something. So it's sort of a meet the home buyers mixed with My Abruzzo. So that is on the 30th of February. So look out for that. Then obviously we'll have a full program then for March. So with regards to the tours, if I could just take over the page again, Tony. With regards to the tours, we finally decided on our autumn dates. If anybody's wondering what these tours are, you can go on the website, which is www.ahomeinitaly.com. Click on tours, and you can read all about them. There's a PDF there, gives you a little bit of information. It's basically group property viewings, and we also see towns, and we have some great food together. It's just a great time that we have, and we're going to run these 7 times a year. They're going to be January, March, April, May, September, October, and November, and these are the dates for the autumn ones. The spaces are not going to be available for another 2 weeks, and then it'll go on sale on the website, and you'll be able to book online and all that kind of thing. So September the 26th and 27th, we've written the 2 days because they're the main 2 days. It's always a Thursday and a Friday. But we actually get together on the Wednesday evening as well and have an aperitif together and all that kind of thing. But it's 26th, 27th of September, 24th, 25th of October, 21st and 22nd of November. So, and as it says there, the booking forms on the website mid-March. Possibly going to be it will be before that, but I'll put mid-March just in case. Tony's showing another sign up to me now. Oh, yeah. He likes to add his... You'd think we'd have all these digital things so I could see what he's trying to tell me, but he writes things down and holds it up to his webcam. Okay, so what else do I want to say? Oh, yes, with regards to the tours, because as I've told you before, we've got a couple from the US who have got some properties who actually sponsor this particular or these Tuesday nights. They have a number of properties around the Sulmona area, and also this side of the mountain, on my side of the mountain around Palombaro. Anybody looking for rental properties for long and short-term stays around the Sulmona area in particular, but also the Palombaro area and Lama di Paligna area as well, please get in touch on the email below, info@ahomeinitaly.com. Just mention that you're interested in the properties for rent, and leave me your telephone number if possible, and especially if you've got WhatsApp on that as well. If you could just send us an email, and I will forward that on to Lewis, who will get back to you as soon as possible. He's got some fantastic accommodation, and the rates are much better than what you can get on certain websites, which I'm not going to mention the names of those. And in particular, any of you that are wanting to come on tours, is going to give people special rates if you are coming on a tour and you wanted to maybe stay over for another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it may be. So any of you that are interested, please email me, info@ahomeinitaly.com, and I will forward your messages on. He is working on his website at the moment, and also on some of the some information about the properties. But obviously, if you contact me, I'll pass you through to him. We have nothing to do with it. It all goes through Lewis, and he will send you all the details of the properties that he's got available around those areas. So it's definitely worth letting me know if that's what you're looking to do. Now, I don't know if anybody starts sending any questions in yet, but we're going to start doing questions in another few minutes, and that's the best way to try and get your questions answered, is to wait while we give you the go-ahead. Tammy's saying, good morning, miss you last week, my day just wasn't the same. Oh, that's really nice of you. And believe it or not, I feel a little bit like that as well when we don't have these sessions, because I do really enjoy it. It's a huge part of our business. It's a huge way of getting the message across, but it's also a huge way for people to start feeling comfortable about the whole thing, about buying a property in Italy, because that is what we're here for, and that's what makes us different. I don't do the other channel bashing and that kind of thing. I'm not interested in that. What I am saying, Lorraine's saying, has Tony hit his head of late? If you didn't see that, the problem is I didn't get his swearing in, Lorraine. That is the problem. But Tony on the last property video was following behind with a torch as we went into a cantina, and he hit his head. And what came out of his mouth mid-video was fantastic, but my microphone didn't pick it up properly. If you didn't see that, look at the last video on Populi, because that's just perfect. It was just the perfect moment. Completely lost now what I was saying. What was I saying then, Tony? Absolutely no idea. But yes, we'll talk about other channels and the rest of it, and I'm not certainly not bashing other places, but what I will say, the way we are different is, I get so many people contacting me saying they want to buy in Italy. They've seen a property, but they just don't know. They're a little bit concerned, they're a bit worried, they're a bit this, they're a bit that. The difference between us and the others is what you see on ours. We deal with it. If you want to buy that property, and now all the property videos are going to be all inclusive, so you know exactly what the price is. I'm going to tell you much more about this next week when we do the webinar or the live stream about us. Always my favorite subject. But you're going to know exactly on every single video property, and every property advertised in the future is going to be inclusive of all fees, all taxes, notary fees, our fees, everything. And now we're doing it different to everybody else because we do it. It's us at the end of the phone. When you're ready to buy, you pick it up. You're not worried about who you're speaking to, who you're not speaking, because you're speaking to me or you're speaking to my wife, Silvana, and we see it through to the end. And that is the difference. We are legally registered. I'm not saying nobody else is legally registered, because some are, some aren't. We're legally registered to do what we are doing, and we see it through to the end. So you haven't got to think that it's just a dream. You haven't got to think that, oh, I'd love to buy it, but I don't know, it all looks too much hassle and blah, blah, blah. It's not too much hassle, and we're here to get rid of all of that hassle and get these things sorted out so you can find yourself here and start living life. There you go. Somebody mentioned Lewis. Did I miss Lewis's email? Now, if you send us an email to info@homeinitaly.com, we will supply you with his details. If you could, please send a telephone number with WhatsApp on it. It's so much easier to get in touch with him. And he likes to talk a little bit like me. So our conversation's gone on for a long time. One of these days he's going to come on here, but he's fantastic. Lots of people have said that he's really helpful. I don't want to sing his praise too much because I know he's watching tonight, but that apparently is very helpful. Okay, perfect. Ron, hi Dave from Riano. What a place Ron's got, or almost. Well, he has that. In fact, Ron, we need to get you on a future. What do we call it? The future. Tony, I've completely forgot my the home buyer ones. What do I call it? Meet the home buyers. That's it. But Ron's definitely going to come on because he's got himself a fantastic place. A little bit of a twist at the end, but we're definitely going to definitely get him on the show in the next. We'll probably leave it another month. The reasons for that will come clear as we speak to him. Okay, so we're pretty much ready for some questions. I'm going to answer 3 questions. So if everybody else wants to start getting their questions ready, don't be shy. Even if they're ridiculous questions, we will try not to laugh. But we might do if they're really ridiculous, because Tony likes to put, in fact, Tony, if you can spare ones about cats and like the one that you put on last time, not that I've got anything against cats, but there was a bit of a question that threw me a little bit. Just try and sift through the questions if you don't mind, and try and, put some good questions through to me. I'm ready. I'm ready to be tested to the maximum. Is everybody ready? Okay, let's start. So I'm going to start with 3 questions that I've been asked about. One of them was the first question that was on tonight when I turned everything on. And they were asking about the latest bonus schemes for restoring properties and what's happening in 2024. Now, The super bonus, as it's called, was they're called the 110, the 110. The 110% was put in place by the Italian government during COVID times. It was a fantastic move at that time. There's lots of people that now hate it because prices have gone up on certain things, and people will do 110 jobs over normal jobs, because when you're obviously pricing for the government or anybody else, the prices tend to go where they should be at the top, and that's pushed the little man out a little bit. But it was a fantastic move, in my opinion. Kept the building trade going and all that sort of thing. And the idea was, if you were improving your property by two letters on the what are they called, the I'm losing my words today, energy certificates. So if you were putting, for instance, new boilers, new windows, insulation, all of that kind of stuff in, the government would pay the whole bill, 100%. Plus, they would give you 10% on top to go towards geometry fees and all the legal fees and all that kind of thing, architects fees, whoever it may be. So the 110 was available up to the end of last year. Any jobs that started before the end of last year, they're still entitled to get this 110. But this year it's now gone down to 70%, which is fantastic. And then next year it's going down to 65%. So obviously it's a scaling thing that's going to keep going down, I presume. However, it's never been easy to get it as a foreigner. If you're an Italian citizen living outside of Italy, there's certain ways that you can get it, but it's never been easy to get it in fact, I've never spoke to anybody that's got it. I've been told it was available to foreigners. Everything I've read is showing that it's to do with people that are paying taxes here. Now, somebody else may say that I'm wrong. I'm not an expert on this, but everything I've read recently, it's still talking about the fact that it's sort of it's almost a grant, but it's for people that are paying taxes here. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, then I do apologize, and people can send me emails in. However, I've never met anybody that's not been resident or a citizen living outside of Italy that has managed to do this. Now, what they do offer, what they do say is, in place of that, people, including yourselves as foreigners, can take the advantage of a different type of bonus scheme, which they give directly in the invoice, because the super bonus is to do with taxes and that. So if you pay an awful lot of taxes, you can reduce your tax bills down and that kind of thing. Even when you buy a new boiler or new anything like that, you can claim certain things against your taxes. It's unbelievable what you can claim. However, if you're not paying any taxes, it is difficult to get that scheme. But they do another bonus, which is the one direct in the invoice. And what that means is it's applied to an invoice. So that's available to anybody. And they can be 50% off things, again, like new boilers, maybe some, it's all to do with like windows and things like that. It's all to do with making your building more efficient, that they do offer these bonuses. Now, remember that the 50% is not actually 50%, because as we all know, there's a registered retail price. So a certain, I'm going to pick on a boiler, but let's say a certain boiler would cost as a registered retail price of 5,000 euros. If you went to a shop, they're going to sell the same boiler for 3,500 euros or 4,000 euros. If you get the 50%, it doesn't come off that, it comes off the top price. So the 5,500, it will then come off of that. So that's the kind of things that they're doing. But it's still a saving. It's still really good savings. So there's lots of people that have had new windows put in, and they've got the 50% off the top mark. But it's still a good saving. In my opinion, saving more like 25 to 30%. But it's still good if you can get it. It's just there's a lot of companies now as well that just don't want to do it, because they're saying it takes time to get paid and all the rest of it. So they are available, but all these schemes, if you're thinking that you're going to buy a ruin and the government's going to pay 110% to do it, be careful, because it is not like that. And if people are telling you it's like that, then stay attend, as I say here. But remember, this year it's down to 70% and then 65% for the years after. Okay, I've got another couple of questions, but I will go to this one. Troy, my wife are looking for a place in the area and want to use your services. What if we find a property with another company? What would the fee structure look like in general? Okay, so if you send me an email to info@homeindustry.com, I will send you a service sheet. Originally, we had a certain way of doing this where we would contact the agents for you. What we found is some agents go along with it and some agents don't and make life difficult, and you end up paying more than what you should do. So we've now got a new scheme, a new service called Lean on Me. Q song, forgot the song tone. I love that song as well. Anyway, and basically, if you are buying through another company, the Lean on Me service is designed to have us by your side. We're not interfering too much with the process of you dealing with the other agent, because sometimes agents will just point blank say no. Or even if they do, they still want the full commissions and they still want to do things in a certain way. The great thing about Lean on Me service is we are there to check along with you how things are going, the kind of procedures that other people are putting in place. It's a new service that we only started doing a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And I think 4 people have done it so far, and 2 of which saved, I would say, the charge that we did, we saved them almost double that. And the other people probably we saved them a good 50% to what they paid us. So if you email me, I will be going into more depth on the Lean on Me service next Tuesday. But if you email me at info@homeindustry.com, I will send you the current services, which will change after next Tuesday once I've poured out everything that we will be doing. But yes, we can help, and that's in any area, wherever it is. If you're looking to buy through a private seller, then that is slightly different because we can get involved right from the start. Again, so I don't know if you've been on some of these bigger websites and it's private owner, then we can help with that. Or maybe you've had a walk around a town, you've seen a sign and really love the property and you want to buy it, then we can help with that. Currently, it is just in Abruzzo, but hopefully we'll change that as time goes on. I'm going to just answer somebody else's question because I saw it pop up about Canada. I've had so many emails from Canadians who are really disappointed that obviously you've not been able to buy properties in Italy because of the rules that were given by the Canadian government. I think it was about a year and a half ago now, where they were not allowing foreigners to buy in Canada, which, because Canada and Italy have reciprocal agreements, whatever happens in one country will happen in the other country. So if, as it happened, Canada said no foreigners can buy in Canada, then Italy automatically did that. There was talk that there were people that were doing signings for Canadians. And there's been talk recently of people doing signings, in particular in Rome, for Canadians buying properties in towns under 10,000, under a population of 10,000. And apparently there is some sort of workaround. The problem is, every notary, the way it works, there isn't one blanket rule for everybody, in the sense of a notary can, if they wish to, look at a certain issue and decide what their interpretation of that law is. And if they're happy with that interpretation and they say, no, I'm happy to go ahead with that, so if anything's contested, I will deal with whatever is contested, then they will happily go ahead and do it. So people saying, I've heard this and I've heard that person's doing it, and there's some lawyers that are saying we can help, but then when you get to the thick of it at the bottom, people are still saying we don't know. And I have given loads of information to my notary who has been looking at it. Then since the law changed recently, because it should have finished in January next year, it's actually been extended for another 2 years. I've asked the notary to please have a good look and give me a definitive answer on this one. So I sent him all the information. He's acknowledged that he's got it, and he's acknowledged he's going to look into it. But as he said, it's not as simple as just saying, yes, let's do it, because there's so many things to consider. So it will take time. But as it is up to now, Canadians cannot buy properties until 2027. I think, again, it will be January 2027. But The notary I know is fantastic. It's very high up as well in the notary society or wherever they call it. And I'm hoping he's going to liaise with some other people and see if we can get a definite answer on that. So let's just, as soon as I know anything, you'll be the first to hear. That's anybody in Canada, because it must be driving you all insane. If you are an Italian citizen or you have an Italian passport, either Italian passport or Italian citizen, then you can still buy a property here. It doesn't affect you. It affects anybody that is just Canadian. And that's the same for Australians. There's restrictions there. There's also restrictions for New Zealand and certain other countries in the world as well. But the vast majority can buy properties here. Okay, so Tony, have you got some more questions? I'm going to answer this one. I was putting one on. Inju, who sends emails quite often. It's good, nice to see a photograph. Good evening. What are the most stupid things we can do when we're buying Italian apartments? What are the most stupid things we can do? Okay, so I'm presuming I don't know how to take this question. Tony is laughing as well. What can I say? What I would say, as I've always said, I think the thirst, this unbelievable thirst for people wanting to buy properties quickly, remotely, as soon as possible, and everything else is huge at the minute. And I would say the most ridiculous thing you can do buying any sort of property is just running into something and thinking, this is going to sound big-headed. Can I say it? Thinking that everybody's like us. That is big-headed, that, isn't it? Tony's nodding his head. But I am going to blow our own trumpets. And that's why I sit here every week, so I can talk like this. And that's not because everybody else is bad, because they're not. But what I find is some people sign things. I've had a case recently, and somebody that took the lien on me service, and what they signed was ridiculous. And luckily we picked it up and said straight away, that is not right. And straight away, that, not that anybody was trying to do anything illegal, but just some of the fees and some of the way things were phrased, I didn't particularly like. And also some of the questions that they asked were answered, but in a roundabout sort of way. And one of them, a huge one, was to do with public transport. And it was so important that this person had public transport. And she asked the question to this particular person. I'm not going to say who it was. And they answered, yes, there is public transport in the village. Well, I know this village, and I know, yes, you can say there is public transport in this particular village, but it's once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and that's it. And you know, what are you going to do when you're trying to get from A to B and trying to get around? Or maybe you're going shopping somewhere and you think, can I have a meal? Oh, no, I can't because I need to get back at this. People need to be much clearer about things. Now, there's no comeback to that person because they asked a question and they got a reply. So all I'm saying is, with this real thirst of what is happening at the minute, which is crazy, what is happening with people buying, I love it. I love the remote thing. I really do. It's a lot of trust between one person and another. So I would say the most stupid thing you can do is rush into things without getting to know that person and without really understanding whether they're doing the right thing by you. And I'm sure there's lots of people that are genuine and that will do a great job and do things by you, but don't rush into signing things straight away. This is the moment where you either need to know what you're doing or have somebody on the ground that does know what they're doing. And again, I can sit here and sell that. And the great thing is you guys are so supportive, and the emails I get and people saying we will deal with you, it's fantastic. I don't have to keep selling to you. But what I would say is just sometimes just hold the brakes and just look at things and just consider what people are saying and how things are phrased. And there's certain things that you could find out on your own because you get certain answers, and I just think that person shouldn't be saying that. And some of this comes on videos as well. Some of the, again, I'm not here to moan about other people on videos, but I see it and I hear it when people are publishing things, and I'm saying, why are you saying that? That is not true. And especially when it comes to somebody restoring, and people are saying, oh, you could do this and you could close this off, and oh, there's a veranda here, you could close this off and turn it into another room. It's not like that. So again, people that are potentially not registered and all the rest of it have no responsibility. It doesn't really matter. They can give you a bit of advice right at the bottom of a YouTube channel. This is just my opinion and blah, 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 blah. That's not how I work. I'm not interested in working like that. And I just think people should just pull the reins in a little bit. That was quite a long answer, that, wasn't it? Did I mention about being big-headed? Tony still is giving me the signs of a huge head. I'm not being big-headed. I'm just talking. Anyway, Lorraine, once we buy and have possession, can we pay at a home in Italy to get us set up for electric, gas, and tax payments, and other monthlies or quarterlies? Yes, you can. That is part of the job that my wife absolutely hates. Some people say she gets all the bad jobs. She doesn't. She and she gets to listen. She gets to listen to me each day talk. But no, it is yes, we do. It's a horrible part of our job. It should be so simple, and the entire buying process is more simple than changing over, is easier, should I say, than changing over electric, water, gas, and all that kind of thing. But yes, of course, we definitely do that, Lorraine. So don't worry. When you get your amazing place, we're here for you on that with no problem at all. Cindy. And hopefully Cindy's going to have a great place as well. Cindy, hi, Dave and Tony. What do you recommend with the utilities if you plan to use the property as a holiday residence, say 3 consecutive months? Cost of maintaining utilities with no use, or do you disconnect? It's not worth disconnecting. Definitely not. Because if you disconnect, you've got to go through the whole palaver again, or put back on again. It's not actually too expensive, the standing charges, I think, compared to potentially where you guys live. I would say electric as a non-resident, somewhere around about the €19 per month as a standing charge, as a fixed charge. Water is, I don't think it's even anything. It's just a few euros at the end of the year. Something that you don't get a set, or if you do, it's very, very, very low. And gas is similar as well, around about 19, maybe between 15 to 20 euros, somewhere like that. So it's really not worth turning them off, because it can just be a little bit of a nightmare. And especially as well, if you're thinking, you may come out, the worst thing to do would be to do that, then you come out and something's gone wrong and the electricity company's not put the electrics on, or the water meter's been taken. And believe me, this happens, or this has happened, and all of a sudden it ruins the first part of your holiday, and you end up staying in a B&B, and the money that you spend there, you could have kept your utilities going. So I would say keep them going. Even internet, there are different options on internet where you can have prepaid cards, but if you're wanting something like fiber optics, you usually only find that it's 24, 25, 26 euros a month, somewhere around about that. So sometimes it's not worth turning all these things off, but definitely not with electric and water, because then you have to pay to have it put back on again, which can be 70, 80, 90, 100 euros, whatever it may be, as a charge to put it on. You may as well just keep it running, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to read this question out. He's put another one. Sarah. Okay, so I'm Canadian, but also have a British passport. Can I still buy in Italy? For once, I can say, being a holder of a British passport, yes, you can. It is a good thing, because after the delights of Brexit, which I'm not getting into now, we all know the kind of things that spoiled for all holders with British passports. And I sincerely hope that the next government does something about it and finally does something right for the British people and give them back their freedom. But I'm not starting on that. Can't remember the question now. Yes, you can. As a Canadian, if you've got a British passport, then yes, you can buy with no problem at all. Okay, Tony, let me just do this one. This one is from Joy. I've got a few questions, but are there inheritance laws in Italy that dictate to whom I can or cannot leave property? Are there inheritance taxes and limits on them? Can properties be put in a trust? If so, in Italy or the US? This may be for your tax guy to answer. I'm going to answer some of this because it's quite interesting to do with inheritance laws. And I think up to, hi, Chris and Michelle, up to going to your place on, did I tell you? Going to your place on Friday. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, if anybody's wondering, I don't mean their home, it's their house out here, just in case you wondered. Where was I? Oh, yes, inheritance laws. So inheritance taxes, I believe below $1 million, there isn't any, but you pay certain things to get the name. If somebody passes away, you pay so much to do what they call the successione, to get it put into your name. There's little bits of it. It's not a huge amount. Once it goes over $1 million, I'm going to wait for my tax man to tell me all things like that. The thing in Italy, the thing that is a little bit different to most countries, is there is a set There is a set, what's the word I'm looking for? Stature? Is that the right word? I don't know. There is set, I'm going to say set rules on how this works. So, for instance, my case, myself, my wife, 2 kids. If anything happened to me, the way the Italian law works is that my half of the property will then be split between my wife and my 2 children. If anything happens to me and my wife, it automatically goes to your children. You can't always write your well, you can't. In Italy, you can't write your children out of the will. It goes to them because the government basically says, why should we look at your children? You put them on this earth, so you pay for it. If you have already, let's say you've already given one of your children something, and then you want to give your other child something else, that we don't want the two to be mixed, there's a possibility, but it can always be contested, because usually what happens is that's how it works. So if anything happens, it gets passed on to surviving partner and children. If you don't have surviving partners and children, but let's say you have girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, the family is more entitled than the girlfriend and boyfriend. Having said all of that, what you can do is you can write your wishes down. Must be handwritten, not typed, must be handwritten. And your wishes can be carried out by the notary. I know after once somebody passes away, you go to the notary and you say, this is the last will and testament of my husband or my wife or whoever it is. I want this published and I want this to happen. But people still have 1 year to try and go against that, if you like. So you do have to be careful. What you can also do is check to see if the country where you are, and in particular in the US, if the state you are has an agreement with the Italian state that you can ask for it to be under the law of your own land. So in the case of the UK, there is an agreement in place, and with quite a few European countries. In fact, I think with all of Europe, there is agreements in place. Always best to get advice from a solicitor on this type of thing. And I think we are going to do this because it is quite an important subject, especially if people are potentially divorced, maybe have children with another partner, maybe have children you no longer talk to. There's things that you need to be aware of that's really important. So I think we probably will have a session on this one. But yeah, that's basically how it works. You can then go to the notary and say, look, this is the last will and testament. If nobody contests that, then it goes ahead as agreed. But the law does state that if let's say for instance, I wanted to write one of my kids out of the will, it's not as easy as doing that, and they can just say, no, I'm their child, I'm entitled to this, and that's how it works. So it is an important one. We will have a session on with that. I will probably get hold of one of my lawyer friends who may well come and do this as a session. So great question, and that's a rough answer to that one. Okay, Tony, do you want to send any more through, or shall I carry on reading? I'm just looking at I wish you could see him on this small screen. The look of concentration is unbelievable. Kathleen, read an email. Proposed all non-EU residents in Italy pay €2,000 for access to the healthcare system. Have you heard of this? Yes. Yes, this is one that's caught a few people by shock. So, currently, or no, not currently, previous to this, you've always had to pay for healthcare here while you become permanent, until you become permanent resident. Now, us Brits, obviously, before the dreaded Brexit, which don't get me talking about that again, but before the dreaded Brexit, everything as it was at home was the same in Italy, and that's it. That's how it worked. After Brexit, obviously certain things changed, and this new law now has come into force. Now, when you move to Italy or decide to move to Italy, if you're an Italian citizen, you're entitled to Italian healthcare, and then so is your wife and potentially your children as well, if you're a citizen. So if you're a citizen living outside of the US, you're entitled to the healthcare as soon as you come here. That's because you're a citizen. Now, up to your first 5 years, obviously you're renewing your permesso di soggiorno every year, and then the vast majority will then get permanent residency once they've been here for 5 years. Now, under the old scheme, for you to move to Italy, you would have to pay a percentage towards healthcare. So once a year, you would either have your own insurance and say, I don't need it, I've got my own insurance, that's it, I don't care. But if you want state paid for care, if you like, what you had to do is go each year to renew your tessera sanitaria, which is basically your health card. And the way that would then work, you would go to the certain centers and you would declare your income. And from that, a percentage of that income would be payable each year. So it's so much up to, and I need to get these rates. In fact, I will do on the next, let me write this one down, because on the next Q&A session, I will actually bring the percentages down. And it went up to a maximum of 5,000 per year. That's if you were on 50 odd grand per year, whatever it is. And that would be for the 5 years, obviously per year, until then you become permanent resident, and then you get your healthcare like everybody else does once you've got permanent residency. Now, if you had no income, so zero income, now us coming over as Brits, it was quite strict, because to say you have no income, to move to Italy, you had to have some sort of income. But if you declare that you no longer have income, so as most Brits living here, maybe they're living off savings, so they don't actually have an income. You paid 300, was it about 380, Tony? I think 380 per year, is nodding his head, per year for healthcare, because you claimed that you didn't have an income and you just paid the basic thing. The Italian government last October suddenly proposed we're going to change that, because it's not right that people who've never paid taxes here, still not paying taxes here, not doing anything, can use our healthcare for 380 euros a year. That is ridiculous. We're going to put that up to 2,000. They just chose 2,000 out of the blue, and that's what it's gone to. Now, there was obviously people against that, saying that people coming from war-torn countries, places like that, Ukraine and all that kind of thing, why should they be forced to pay this money? So there was some concessions done, but it has been passed through, and that's what's happened. So at the moment, yes, if you become resident here, for the first 5 years, you will have to pay that out as a minimum of 2,000 euros per year to go towards your healthcare. But sounds ridiculous. First of all, let's think about it properly. When you move here, you don't pay any council tax. So I don't know what kind of council tax you pay in. I've heard some unbelievable figures of council tax from the UK, as in what you pay your local council every year just to have your house. You don't pay that here. So if you're a resident, you pay a garbage tax, a bin tax, but I mean, we pay in this house 350 euros per year, something ridiculous like that. But you don't pay council tax. So yes, you can look at it and say 2,000, that's a lot, but you don't pay any council tax at all. So in the grand scheme of it, I think it's quite a good deal. And I can understand, I think it's a huge increase, but you can understand to a certain extent why they've done that. But when you come over here as somebody from the US or somebody outside of Europe, even from the UK at the moment, if you've got an income, depending on that income, there's a percentage scale what you'd put towards healthcare for the first 5 years. But the minimum now, instead of it being 380, the minimum is now 2,000 per year. But as I said, you won't pay council taxes. And in the UK alone, I would say even the lowest council taxes are 12, 13, 14, 1,500 pounds per year. So it's not actually, when you convert it to euros, it's not actually that much more. Whereas coming from possibly the States, maybe Canada, places like that, where council taxes are thousands and thousands per year, then obviously you're saving and you're getting a great healthcare. Having said all of that, if you've got your own insurance and everything else, then that's fine. You just use your own insurance. But the healthcare here is fantastic and worth every penny, in my opinion. Has its problems, like anywhere else, but it is superb. Okay. While Tony's thinking about another one to put on there, are there ride services in Abruzzo towns like Uber or Lyft? I know you've mentioned trains and buses, but what about taxis? Expensive or not? So the smaller towns and villages, the Uber, and I've never heard of Lyft. I've heard of Uber. They do exist in big cities. I don't even know if Pescara if it has a Uber service. I know they have a taxi service. I find taxis here quite expensive because very few people use them. So they are quite expensive. But if you're going to the big cities, I mean, I was in Milan, as you know, last week. Uber services were fantastic there. But in the towns and villages, no. The bus services are great. Buses are as cheap as anything. Trains are unbelievably cheap. and absolutely superb as well. But taxis are a little bit more expensive. So yeah, again, if public transport is really important to you, make sure the people that's trying to sell you something understand that. Get the right answer from them. Do you want to pop any on, Tony? Should see his comfy. Is either his screen's frozen? Are you still there, Tone? Oh yeah, I'm sure he does it on purpose. There's a little screen I can see him, and it was just perfectly still. I thought, is that his screen's frozen, he's gone, or he's just ignoring me. Hello, I went to a notary in Lanciano last week to get a quote if I purchased the house. I found, and he said that as an American, I pay about $2,000 more than Italians do. Is that right? It depends how he phrased it. Nothing to do with being American or being Italian. It's to do with residency. So if you are becoming a resident, the taxes are the same. Because some people will say to me, I'm going through my Italian citizenship. Should I wait to buy once I have an Italian passport? It doesn't make any difference. What does make a difference is if you are becoming a resident or not. So when you get the taxable value of a house, which a lot of times can be less than what you pay, and sometimes it can be more if it's a cheap house, but a lot of time it's less than what you pay. So let's say you're buying a house of 80,000 euros and it has a taxable value of 50,000 euros. Then you will pay 9% just as a tax, as a purchase tax, a one-off tax of the taxable value, not what you're paying for it, but what it's actually the taxable value. That is as a non-resident. So if you're buying it as a holiday home or you already live here, let's say if I decide to buy another property tomorrow, I will pay as a second home. So I will pay the 9%. So whether you're coming from the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, wherever in the world, from anywhere in Europe, makes no difference. That is what you pay. If you're becoming resident, then you will pay 2% with a minimum of 1,000, because taxes here have a minimum of 1,000. So if the notary actually said to you, as an American, you pay 2,000 more as an Italian, I'm guessing, because I don't think they probably slightly misphrased it, because that is completely untrue. But I'm not going to say a notary. So I think what they were trying to probably say is, if you're an Italian or if you were living here, then you would pay less. But again, you can't just put a figure of 2% on it, because it depends. You know, if it's got a taxable value of 100k, you pay 9k as a non-resident. You pay 2k as a resident, so there's 7,000 there. So this 2k, I don't know why it was specific to that, but maybe it was specific to the quote that you asked for. Notaries are great. You know, you're not going to the notaries. Obviously, you can shop around. We have a fantastic notary that I really look, really, well, he's brilliant in Chieti. And he tends to, I find, is the most reasonable prices. But you're not going to save thousands going from one to another, because, you know, the taxes, you can't do anything about it. The fixed charge, you can't do anything about it. So, yeah, I think it was probably wrong use of words, rather than, because that's certainly not true that you pay different just because you've got a different nationality. It's only to do with residency. And remember, if you're an Italian citizen, if you're buying as a holiday home, it's still the same. You still pay the 9% tax. Okay, hope that answered that one. I've got another one here. Is Italy dog friendly? Can you take dogs to many places? Are there places where you can leave them for daycare or overnight stays in many towns? I've never heard anybody mention this. I would say that in the past, dogs were, and still now in the countryside, used as outdoor animals to do a job and to keep whatever away, and not necessarily people, animals, anything else, to make a noise if anything comes on the land or that kind of thing. And even though the countryside is still like that, dogs are becoming more of, when I say dog, the little show dogs and things like that are now becoming a big part of Italian life as well. So yeah, there is a tolerance to dogs. Whether you can take them everywhere, some restaurants won't allow dogs in, so you do need to check. Some beaches have dog-friendly beaches, and there are some beach areas that are for dogs, and they're doing an incredible job. Some of these places. So it is becoming more and more popular. But don't presume that you can go into every restaurant and everything else with a dog, because sometimes they just will not allow it. Not in every, but there are quite a few that will say no. As for anybody doing dog sitting, you usually find that it's expats doing that. So you usually find that there'll be a number of, join some of these forums that's on some of the social media, and you'll find out about there's always somebody in these groups that will look after animals. But yeah, it is becoming more dog friendly, but just don't presume you can go everywhere with them. Marina, is it possible to buy ready-to-move-in property around Pescara province for just 15,000 euros? Very difficult. I mean, obviously, Pescara province is what you got to remember is the fees and taxes, because if you're looking for something around about 15k, we've had some houses. We had one. In fact, we had one a couple of weeks ago that went straight away. And that was 19,000, including all fees and all taxes. So I made a face, but that's an example of one. If you're thinking 15,000, including all fees and all taxes, they're really rare in good areas, but even in bad areas, they're still really rare, because you've got to consider fees and taxes. And fees and taxes make up a really large percentage when it's on cheaper properties. Because there's, if a notary, and if we or if anybody else is doing jobs for somebody that's buying a property, doesn't matter what the price of that property is, the same job still has to be done. So unfortunately, you really get hammered when you're buying cheaper properties when it comes to percentages. This is why I always say, when people ban percentage around, saying 10 to 15% goes to fees and tax and things like that, is so incorrect. Because it's too difficult to say that, because on cheaper properties it can be 100% the taxes. It can cost you just as much for the fees and taxes as it does the actual property. So don't give up. If it includes fees and taxes, it is going to be really difficult, really difficult. But as I said, I put one on a couple of weeks ago for 19,000, including all fees and taxes. So don't give up. Just keep an eye out. I saw Simon popped up there from Manopello. Hello, Simon. I understand you're back in town. Okay, so Tony, have you got any? Okay, Andrew. Hi, is it possible to change zoning of a property from C storage to A residential? What's the likelihood, process, or cost if the building's used as a house currently but zoned C? Okay, so if it's been used as a house and zoned as C, then obviously it shouldn't be. So what's happened is somebody has done some restorations, maybe changed it from a barn to a property, don't want to pay taxes on it, and so it's been classed as a C. You should never buy a property that's classed as C. C is classed as storage, garages, all that kind of thing, barns, cantinas. They're classed as C. And as you quite rightly say, A is residential. So you shouldn't be buying anything that's classed as C that you're thinking is a house, because you're falsely declaring it and all the rest of it. I'm not saying you're doing that, Andrew, but yeah, so the chance of it becoming a residential, there's a good chance. You always need to check with the local council, because what you're doing is you're increasing the volume of your house. And to increase the volume of the house, the councils may have some restrictions in place that say, no, you cannot increase the volume. We won't allow you to do it. In Abruzzo, for instance, people that have attic spaces, if they're the right height and everything else, there's a law that they put out to say that they could be changed into habitable spaces. And you are allowed to actually do that. But again, you have to check the current laws. Always need a geometer or somebody like that can advise you, or ask the local council. So there's a good chance that it could be done that. It's not as straightforward as just, well, it is as straightforward as changing from C to A, but they will want to know why you've done that. Now, let's say you bought something that's classed as C, but it's got a habitable apartment there, and you thought it was a habitable apartment and you thought you were buying that, but you bought it anyway as a C. You declared at that time that it wasn't a habitable property. You declared that it was a C. It was storage. It was a cantina. If the reality is it wasn't, then the problem is not a problem, but what they will say is, how are you going from C to A? How are you going from a garage or a cantina to a habitable property? You must have done something. You can't just say, can I call this cave a house? because they will say, well, how's that cave become a house? And to become a habitable property, it has to have enough light going into it. There's certain ratios for the square meters and the size of the windows and all that kind of thing. So you will have to say why it's gone from C to A. And if you've already done the work but you didn't ask for permission, then you've got to say, well, actually, I've done this work and I know I shouldn't have done. I know I should put planning in. I've done this. Can I do retrospective planning? Have a slap on the hand, pay some fines and all the rest of it and change it. There's possibilities that you can do that. It always needs a geometry to look at it. But yes, the problem you would have is if the council said, actually, no, you cannot increase the volume of your property. You can't take it as read that it's definite that you can. There's a very good chance that you can. But again, things like ceiling heights, window sizes, and that kind of thing all come into play. So it's a good question and one to watch out for, Andrew. This is why I always say a good geometry is great to have on your side. Does Italian citizen planning on living but buying from out of the country have an effect on the taxes of the resident v non-resident buyer? An Italian citizen planning on living but buying from out of the country. Okay, so if you're an Italian citizen or any citizen, doesn't matter whether you're Italian. Again, it really doesn't make a difference whether you're an Italian citizen, American citizen, you got whatever. It doesn't make no difference. Well, it's important that you establish residency to get the 2% instead of the 9%. Now, you have 18 months to do that. So there's lots of people that are asking us to do remote sales, and they're saying, I want you to buy this property on my behalf, and I'm going to become a resident. I want to buy it as a resident. And we can do that with no problem at all. So when you go to the notary, all the notary does, you don't have to take residency documents through. The notary is asking you if you plan on becoming a resident within 18 months. If you say yes, the notary will write into the contract, will warn you of what happens if you don't become resident. Because if you don't become resident within 18 months, you have to pay the difference back between the 2% and the 9%. Whatever difference that was on the taxable values, plus a fine, plus interest. So he will or she will warn you that that's will happen, that you have to become a resident within 18 months within the council that this property is in. You can't have another property in Italy that you already claim residency on. And provided you do all that, the notary is not going to check on you. This is then once the notary passes that into the Agenzia dell'Entrata, the land registry, the tax office, that kind of thing, we're saying, the notary is saying these people are paying less tax because they're declaring that they're going to become resident within 18 months, so on and so on and so on. For the notary, it doesn't no difference to him or her whether you do or you don't, but the tax officer will then look at it. Once that date's gone by, they will notice that you've not become resident, and that's then when the fine goes out and the rest of it. Unless you go there before and say, look, I'm really sorry, didn't manage to change it in time, slap of the hand. You may get away with some of the fine in that kind of, as long as you come forward to say it. So yes, you can do that as long as you do it within 18 months then of the day that it's actually signed. Okay, any more? So we can have two. It's 7:57, so we'll have another couple of questions, and then living, working outside box. I'm sure I've received an email from that. I always recognize people from their emails addresses. How does one check how many owners there are for a property? Is there a chance one back room could have been sold to someone with rights to go through the house? Just heard horror stories about. This is a classic. I'm glad you've asked this question, because this is a classic. And Tony, I will have to say this is the last question, because I'm going to take my time with this one. Take me about 3 hours. If anybody else has got any questions left, then please email me them, and I'll put it on the next Q&A session. So it's a simple thing. You know what I hear the most? So many people will say, I'm not going to buy in Italy because I've heard that you can buy a property from somebody and then you find out 2 days later it wasn't even theirs. Somebody else comes to take it back, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. It can't happen in that way, because it's clear who the owners are. So when you do a preliminary search, and then the notary does it at the very last moment as well. So you do a search on the property, and it tells you who the owners are of that property. Tells you who the owners are. It's quite clearly stated. Now, if somebody's had an agreement with somebody to use a room and blah, 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 and or that garage I sold to so-and-so, but they haven't done the transfer of ownership, The person who is being hard done to because they've paid some money, maybe they've got a private agreement, is hard done to, but that not to you, it's to the other people, to the people that sold it, because they sold it, you know, and went against a private agreement. So that's between them to sort. If I buy a property and that property tells me that the owner is this person, and this person, then those people need to be there at the signing, or they need to have power of attorneys or that kind of thing. So if somebody does have one room, it will be on the documents and it will be classed as a separate, so it will be a house that's actually split up between this part of the house and then that one room that belongs to somebody else. That happens quite a lot. Sometimes you get houses that are 2 apartments or 2 apartments and a garage. They will be split up as different apartments and a garage. So it can be common that somebody owns, I don't know, part of a house, or somebody owns, but it will be there in black and white. So, but this is the easiest thing for people to say, I've heard it's like that. People just invent these stories. They like to listen to them. These are the armchair experts that I always talk about, because everything's there in black and white. And that goes the same for land. It goes the same for outbuildings. It goes for the same for houses. It's all there in black and white. What the notary is doing is the notary is saying, I have downloaded this from land registry. Land registry, the official land registry of Italy, is telling me that this property belongs to this person, this person, and this person. And they are sat in front of me, and you're wanting to buy it from this person. And that's it. Whether there's rights over land or that kind of thing, then that will always be written into a previous act. So let's say if somebody's always had the right to, I don't know, that somebody can walk down this land, or it's a certain type of land, that will be, when they bought it, that will also be the on that old act as well. So let's say I said to my neighbor, you can use my shed, and we do a contract with each other to say that you can use that for 50 years, blah, 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 blah. Okay, nothing. Let's say nothing's registered anywhere. And then somebody else comes to buy the property, and then the neighbor comes over and you say, no, you're not using that. That's mine. You know, it's not written anywhere that you've got that. So they produce a private agreement. Private agreement is with the person that sold it. They shouldn't have done that, because they've actually declared false also on a notary, on the notary, to say that somebody did have the right or rights and access, and there's something written. So that person who did have the right can then claim damages, not from you, but from the person that's declared that there's nothing there. That's why when the notary does these checks, a lot of it's passed back to the person for them to declare. There's certain things when it comes to works that you've had done, that kind of thing, that the notary is saying to the person, you need to declare that this is the way it is. We do cover these subjects quite a lot on the legal documents. If you look back on our YouTube channel and go on the live section and look at the legal documents and that kind of thing, we do cover quite a lot on there. But what I will say is ignore these people that come out with certain things. Watch these shows each week and understand how it works. Because if it was really as bad as that, nobody would buy here, you know. But it's not like that. Everything is it's actually a superb system. Some of the things in Italy that are unbelievably complicated are some of the simple things in life. Some of the things that you just want to laugh and cry at the same time. But the actual difficult thing, or the actual things that, such as buying properties, it is quite, I'm going to say straightforward, but the system is really, really good. So it's, don't listen to people when they start saying things like that. But again, you need people you can trust. You need people who know what they're doing when they're looking at the documents. And then obviously the notary will check everything at the end. Okay. Steph is saying, we'll be there 2 weeks looking for a home. I want to stay outside Sulmona. Can you recommend a website that rents homes by the week? Steph, if you send us an email to info@ahomeinitaly.com, and just if you can include your telephone number with WhatsApp, and I will send your details on to Lewis, who will get in touch with you with some fantastic properties outside of Sulmona as well, that I'm sure he'll be able to send you lots of information. Gene, hello Dave, sent you an email, January the 24th, new travel dates. Would love to hear for an appointment set up. January the 24th, that's... Can you send me again then, Gene, please? Because I'm now completely up to date. I had a nightmare. In fact, the forms on our website, I've got somebody looking at the moment because I've got a bit of a problem with them. But Jean, if you could send me that again, please, because I'm completely up to date with emails. So if anybody has not had a response from me, please send again, and then and I will respond. Tony likes to put one of those on just to make out as if I'm, just ignoring people. He's terrible, isn't he? Anyway, hope you enjoyed that one. Remember, next week, we're talking about the changes that is happening to a home in Italy. Some of them I am really excited because we finally found the right system, in my opinion. We finally, I don't know, got it right, I think. And because we've seen what's happening, we've seen what people want to do, and we're going to grab it with both hands and take things forward. Paul, greetings from Dublin. That's my wife's uncle, just to let you know. Hope you guys are well. Okay, so yeah, next week, make sure you join in. And don't forget, I've got to read it. Domenico and Tony's Tongue Twisting Trials, which is going to be, I'll tell you more about what's going to happen next week, but that should be a little bit of a laugh. And the first one starts next week. So as well as me talking about how we can help you and how we're going to set things up for the future, you also get to have a little bit of a laugh with that as well. Okay, guys, thank you so much for all your support as usual. And what else can I say? We'll see you this time next week.